All right, everybody, really appreciate your time first and foremost. I hope everybody enjoyed the BevCanna presentation by Emma as much as we did. We're proud partners of BevCanna and very excited to tell you about our company, Next Leaf Solutions, which trades as oils on the CSE. So Next Leaf is a company that we started 2.5 years ago, and our focus from day one has been developing intellectual property around the extraction and purification of cannabinoids. I think we've really approached it differently in the sense that 2-3 years ago when if you looked at the Canadian marketplace, it was a bunch of companies that were vertically integrated, and that was really a function of the licensing in Canada where companies had raised a lot of money and were focused on growing, processing, and selling consumer brands. So when we started the company, we had said, let's focus on the highest margin part of the supply chain, and let's really focus on one thing and doing that one thing better than anybody else. So our focus over the last 2.5 years, we've been an R&D based company, so we've been pre-revenue and focused on developing our portfolio of issued and pending patents around the extraction, purification, and formulation of CBD and THC based products at scale. As we look into 2020, now we have recently had our processing facility in Coquitlam, BC licensed under the standard processing program, and that now it's all about transitioning into commercializing our intellectual property. But I think at the heart of what we do, and we really view the industry being about molecules. And when you're talking about infused products, we very much view the industry as what is your cost per milligram to produce CBD and THC-based products. And we think through innovation, through taking very, very disruptive technology that we acquired from the legacy market out in British Columbia and have scaled up with our chemical engineers and chemists, we think that how we develop a sustainable competitive advantage is by developing and protecting intellectual property that will allow companies to produce high purity CBD and THC molecules at scale for the lowest cost per milligram in the industry. So looking at our process, and that's always the first question that we get is, well, what are your patents around and what is your process? How is it different than what other guys are doing? And I think when we stepped back and looked at it and we said, when you're looking at the infused products that are set to become legal in Canada, you've got to manufacture those products with a high purity, tasteless, odorless molecule. So we took some molecular distillation technology from the legacy market and had acquired it in early 2017, and we filed a number of patents around this technology. The technology is based around cryoethanol-based extraction, filtration and purification, and molecular distillation to get to that tasteless, odorless molecule. So really the business model now, as our facility is licensed and as we start focusing on commercializing this intellectual property, is how do we continue to innovate, continue to scale, and really focus on the post-extraction part of the process. And when we look at this simple pictorial representation on our patented process, the first of the kind of 3 main phases is what everyone focuses on when they say, are you running CO2 or ethanol? And for us, primary extraction is just the first stage in a multi-stage process. We think that there's a lot of intellectual property that goes in from taking crude extract or crude cannabis oil and refining that into that high purity molecule, being able to standardize it for dose, being able to separate, isolate, and reformulate based on the desired medical or adult use product. So we've developed a number of patents. We have 8 issued patents for this process. Our first patent covered the total end-to-end process, and since we've developed more specific patents that we've had issued by the U.S. Patent and Trade Office around our proprietary filtration and refinement process. What this all means is that it allows us to get to that high purity molecule cheaper and more efficiently than folks that are running other extraction mediums in Canada. So then obviously this takes us to our business model. Our focus is not to develop brands. I think from experience, we've really learned that there's a lot of companies that have tried to do too much. They've tried to do it all. And we believe in staying in our lane and staying in our sweet spot, which is toll processing and contract manufacturing. So we really believe in by letting our partners develop brands like Bev Canada. You obviously heard from Emma earlier. We think that there's a number of more traditional CPG, consumer packaged goods companies that are starting to get in this space, and how we commercialize our product is through these partners that then take oil and high purity distillates that have been manufactured in our facility, take those to market through the B2C channels. We also really like the intellectual property side. We think that despite the fact that our company is based here in British Columbia and focused exclusively on Canada, we think through a patent portfolio of 8 issued and 28 pending patents, that now there's additional revenue streams that open up globally as countries like Germany and Poland and Asia start coming online. When you look at other industries, you look at life sciences, biotech, pharma, intellectual property matters. And we believe that as this industry now evolves from companies that grow plants and talk about how many millions of square feet of cultivation capacity, and as derivative-based products become legal in Canada next month, that there will be a lot more focus on companies that can develop intellectual property that is defendable through the patent and trademark. And then obviously being able to monetize that intellectual property through whether that's licensing or processing. The extract segment I'll skip over pretty fast. I think the main thing we want to point out is what we know about cannabis legalization, not just in Canada, but globally, is that the consumer trend has been moving away from consumers that smoke cannabis into the derivative-based products. Last year in Canada, the sale of oils, which was a low-dose cannabis oil, increased 95% year over year, when the sale of dried flower actually only increased 11%. So we're seeing that in the medical market, we're seeing that in the adult use market, and then with infused beverages, vape pens, edibles, and all the other concentrates that become legal in October, we think that the consumer demand is going to continue to shift, and that obviously has a big impact on our business and how we commercialize our intellectual property. So when we look at the media, there's been a lot of focus on IP. There's been a couple of great articles in the Financial Post, and not just around intellectual property, but specifically how companies are protecting their formulations and their processes to actually develop products and market products. Our focus now, as we transition into 2020, is to start commercializing this intellectual property. We've built a great team that's very experienced. I've been in the industry about 5 years. Myself and our CFO were previously at a company called Peace Naturals, which we had sold to the Kronos Group 3 years ago and exited to start Nextleaf. And the president of Nextleaf Labs, which is the licensed entity in Coquitlam, is run by an individual named Tom Ulanowski, who had built BC's first legal cannabis producer. That was Canna Farms and Hope, which sold last summer $130 million. So we think we've got the right people. We've got the right technology, and I think our focus being on B2B, wholesale toll processing for the number of consumer packaged goods companies, beverage players, and I think companies that are very experienced at taking products to market, we think allows our investors a focus on a part of the industry that we've seen a lot of focus on. I think the guys at MediPharm Labs and Valens have done a great job over the last 12 months to really validate the model around focusing on one part of the supply chain. And for us, we're really excited to get into 2020 as we start to commercialize our intellectual property with our great partners like Bev Canna. And as the market for the infused products comes online, what we are seeing across Canada is that there's a lack of supply. So we think from a fundamental perspective, when you look at a company like Valens, they're currently charging 6 to 8 times what a processor in California would charge for the same service. And we think that is really a reflection on a lot of billion-dollar companies that have been focused on growing plants and building their brands. And I think there's been a lot of billion-dollar players that have really under-invested, and they've underestimated, quite frankly, the amount of R&D that needs to go into building a highly refined cannabis extraction purification facility. So we're very excited to again, commercialize our technology 2020, and just really appreciate the opportunity, everybody, to hear the story and give us a chance to tell it. Be happy to answer any questions that anybody will have. Thanks very much.